Yesterday, Europeans elected the EU Parliament. I haven't really prepared a video, and I will just give you my overall impression, my emotional impression on it. But I have already made a video about the first debate. They had two debates, and I will link it below. It explains more the overall structure of the EU and how the debate isn't actually a debate. So I dive a bit more into cultural issues, and I actually planned to speak in more detail about the actual conversation that they are having or not having, and the topics they touch. But then I found out that even small snippets just give so much room to disagreement that I just grasped something, jumped on it, and gave an overall impression of the first debate. Then there was the second debate. I was quite dissatisfied, to say the least, because the parties did not send the same candidates. They don't believe themselves that we, the voters, have any real effect on the outcome. So to repeat what I have already said in the video that I've mentioned, the EU Commission is not voted directly, and the debate is supposedly between the candidates for the head of the commission. The candidates have changed, and we are still somewhat made to believe that this was a democratic act. And by this time, it is now Monday, and the election was yesterday. And you would expect that in a democracy where people come to select the representatives to any office, and a mandate, a seat in the parliament is an office. If something is declared as a democratic election, then you would expect to know the day after the election who gets what seat and who gets what office. That is the representative democracy. However, that is not what we are getting. Instead, we get pie charts of how many votes a party leader could accumulate. But we are not getting who is representative of what group and in what office. We don't get anything. We don't actually know what we elected. And in the end, somebody will have some offices, and it isn't really clear who voted them for what purpose. That is a testament to how they treat us. It is going a long way to tell us what they think of the citizen and how little they believe in the system that they pretend to cherish. Now the results are mixed. I am quite disappointed. I see a lot of cheering on the political right, but I am very disappointed, and I will tell you why. The big wins by Marine Le Pen and Matteo Salvini sound great, but are ultimately not a big part of that pie chart. And what's more important, I see a much darker force coming along the way than anything that the Conservatives have on their map right now. All these Conservatives, I say Conservatives, but quite frankly, Marine Le Pen is very much to the left of Bernie Sanders. She's for huge welfare programs, for example. She's not even near a conservative, and the same is probably true for Matteo Salvini. So the only thing that makes them conservative, or even on the political right, is that they want less immigration. But that is already sticking out so much that it is only offered by these few parties that you basically grasp for anything if you are conservative and accept all the bad stuff that comes with it. And I see a much darker force than even the immigration topic that unites Salvini, Marine Le Pen, AfD, and so on. I see the rise of the Green. There has been a book by Faye Weldon, which I may recommend. It is actually more a book for women, I would say. She's a former feminist. I think she does not identify as a feminist anymore. But she had written a dystopia that is very accurate, and she was one of the earliest warners of this development, which I see dawning on us. It's called Checkered Crescent, and it describes a dictatorship with this environmentalist ideology. This Green Party movement has every ingredient that you need for a brutal, stable dictatorship like Stalinism. Many of these people in these parties actually had been communists, supported Mao, Pol Pot, and so on, and they just veil it under this urgency of environmentalism. If you don't act now, if you don't stop driving your car and don't stop eating meat and so on, catastrophe will ensue. That's what they tell people, and that's why you have these wicked truancy demonstrations every Friday, for example. I mean, this is madness. If you look back into history, into the Middle Ages, for example, this was the kind of stuff that usually happened always short before some pogroms and violent outbursts. And I see this happening too. We have a level of excitement in this newfangled religion, and what I really see is the rise of these people. The party itself, it looks on the surface, is still comparatively small, but other parties are already discussing how they can take over their talking points, their ideas, be a bit more environmentalist, care more about climate change, and so on. Angela Merkel's party, the Union, is currently having that discussion, and the Social Democrats do as well. So here we have this Jamestownish mindset infiltrating everything, and I believe this will end like Jamestown. Even worse, I think it will take decades of war and self-destruction until this cult is over. I think it's worse than the old communism, because it has this urgency that communism didn't have. Communism just had maybe the promise of everything being fine if you trust your uncorruptible leaders and give them everything you have. But the Greens basically demand the same, but they come with this urgency that if you do not give up every of your rights, every of your properties, and everything that you love in life, if you don't sacrifice for the greater good, then catastrophe, the world goes under, climate change, animals go extinct, and so on and so on and so on. And what I see and what I'm really shocked about is that they are very successful. We are speaking about 20% in Germany, and at the same time, also yesterday, a number of German states have had elections, and the Greens gain 20%. They are now the second largest party. Just a couple of years ago, they used to be a minor a fringe party, and 30 years ago, nobody would have expected them to even enter the parliament. They were communists. People identified them as communists. They had pedophilia in their party platform. There was just this utter nonsense, and they are still for drug liberation. There are ties to the mafia and so on. And not despite this, but because of this, they gain ever more traction. and the entire media is behind them. There is hardly a media outlet that says, okay, we still support cheerfully Kim Jong-un. That's not what they do. But it becomes ever harder to say communism may work this time, maybe the next time it will work. But if you just don't call it communism anymore, but just socialization of property, or we have now an expropriation debate that's mad. Um, uh, Germans now speak of democratic redistribution of profits. Now that's communism, but they do not admit that it's communism. And our Minister of Economics, Peter Altmaier, who is supposedly a member of the Conservative Party, it used to be, oh my goodness, a bit conservative 30 years ago. And he plans to create what the Soviets called a Kombinat. The East Germans also called it that name. And it is the combination of production sites into bigger production entities. And supposedly this is having all these great synthetic effects that you can expect sometimes when you have larger units, but not always. And it did not work in the Soviet Union. It did not really work in East Germany, and still Peter Altmaier tries to achieve that. And I see this coming up again. It's just it will come under different names. What I really hate about the left is that they reintroduce shit that has already failed again and again and again, and keep putting different labels on it. And what's also very frustrating is that I believe we are entering a second medieval times. The epidemics that wiped out the Native Americans. No, they were not killed by white people. They were wiped out by germs being brought into their country by the settlers. So the movement of people that led to the eradication of the Native Americans, or the growth of people who died during the American Civil War were not killed during battles. They were killed through the epidemics because people moved around. I think that this entire movement, ideology, and it is really more than be kind to people who look differently, and it isn't even about refuge and asylum. At the very core, really, there is an ideology that you become a spiritually higher human being if you move your home. That sounds dumb. It is dumb. But if you live in Europe and you read, for example, a job hunting advising book, it will usually tell you that you have much better chances of getting a job, at least at big corporations, when you have moved your home, and particularly when you have moved your home across country borders. So there is much more to it than just an interest in humanity or anti-racism and so on. That's just a facade. At the very core, they have made moving homes a religion. And when the epidemics come, when the freedom of speech will completely be eradicated, democracy will be trashed, and so on, the next step will be an all-out world war. That's what I expect. I hope I'm wrong. So far, I was not very lucky in being wrong, I assume. So that was it for today, and I'll see you soon. Bye.